You already read people every single day, but without knowing it. The nervous laugh, the fake smile, the sudden silence, they're all clues. Nietzsche's 18 Truths will show you how to finally decode them. Once you learn this skill, you can't unsee it. And this isn't just another quick list. It's a full breakdown, step by step, each part building on the last. Miss one, and you miss the depth. But stay with me, and by the end, you won't just see others differently, you'll see yourself differently too. From a young age, you're trained to trust what people say. Words are our currency. But Nietzsche warned us not to be fooled by language, because people don't speak from truth. They speak from survival, from ego, from fear, the surface of someone's. Personality is not them, it's their armor. The person who seems overly kind may not be kind at all. They may be terrified of rejection. The one who seems strong may be crumbling underneath, hoping no one notices. And what's most deceptive about humans is they don't even know they're doing it. Most people are actors in a play they didn't write. Their smiles, their opinions, their tone, all shaped by what kept them safe. And this is why most people aren't hiding from you. They're hiding from themselves. Nietzsche once said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." But he didn't mean that as an insult. He meant it as a warning to not confuse the mask with the person. Here's what no one tells you. People leak the truth all the time. Not in their words, but in the cracks, the moments they look away, the way they laugh too long, the way they quickly change. The subject when it gets too close, and Nietzsche's first psychological truth is this one. Everyone wears a mask to survive, not because they're fake, but because they're scared to survive society. People create a version of themselves they hope will be accepted, but masks aren't perfect. They slip, and the first sign of truth is tension. Watch for what makes someone uncomfortable. That's where the real person begins to. What someone hates in others reveals what they're hiding in themselves. This is one of Nietzsche's sharpest insights. Projection. When someone constantly mocks arrogance, they're often insecure about their own self-worth. When someone can't stop pointing out dishonesty in others, they're usually hiding a truth they haven't faced. We hate in others what we're afraid to admit in ourselves. So when you want to read someone, don't just look at what they admire. Look at what they criticize and why. 3. Silence reveals more than words. Nietzsche didn't believe truth came from talking. In fact, he saw language as a tool of the herd, often used to avoid confronting reality. When someone pauses before answering, when they dodge certain topics, when they give short, rehearsed replies to deep questions, that silence is louder than speech. A person avoiding vulnerability is revealing everything about what they fear. 4. Excessive virtue is often disguised vanity. Be wary of the person who loudly proclaims their purity, the one always correcting others, always preaching. Nietzsche called this the will to power in disguise. Sometimes morality becomes a mask for superiority. The louder the virtue signal, the more likely there's something being hidden behind it. Real goodness doesn't need applause. 5. People don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves. This one changes everything. The lies you hear from people, "I'm fine, I'm over it, I don't care," aren't lies to hurt you. They're lies they've rehearsed so often they believe them. Nietzsche understood self-deception not as evil, but as defense, a way to keep functioning in a painful world. So when someone's story doesn't quite add up, don't assume they're trying to deceive you. Realize they've been doing it to themselves far longer, and that's what makes reading them possible, because the inconsistencies reveal the truth. 6. Where someone feels superior, They're hiding inferiority. This is pure Nietzsche. He believed that superiority is often overcompensation. If someone constantly reminds you of their accomplishments, they likely fear they're not enough. If someone puts others down casually, they're probably terrified of being overlooked. Real confidence doesn't compete, it just is. So if someone needs to dominate, control, or prove, look deeper behind the throne. You'll often find a scared child wearing a crown. Reading people isn't about judging them, it's about understanding their core. When someone interrupts constantly, you now know it's not always arrogance. It might be fear of being forgotten. When someone posts obsessively about happiness, it may be a cry for help. When someone avoids eye contact while saying, "I'm fine," you know to listen to the body, not the sentence. Use these truths not to gain power, but to extend compassion. Because the more clearly you see someone, the less likely you are to hate them. And that's Nietzsche's secret. He didn't want you to see through others so you could control them. He wanted you to see through them so you could stop being fooled and start connecting. And if you've ever looked at someone and felt like you were only seeing the surface, if you've ever wished you could decode what's really going on beneath the mask, drop a comment below. Let's talk about the moments when people showed you the truth without saying a word. And if this video helped you see people differently, subscribe. There's much more coming, and you'll want to see the rest of Nietzsche's truths unfold. It's one thing to notice the mask, it's another thing entirely to watch it crack. If you've ever paid attention, you've probably seen it happen. A flash of discomfort when someone's beliefs are challenged, the way their tone shifts when the subject gets too close, the nervous laugh that doesn't match the words. These moments aren't mistakes, they're clues, and if you know what to look for, you'll begin to understand that people aren't hard to read, they're just scared to be seen. In part 1, we explored how people build personas to protect themselves, but here in part 2, we go deeper into the places where those personas begin to break, because Nietzsche believed that the self is not a stable thing. It's a performance, a stitched-together role, meant to survive the world. And the moment it's threatened, the truth leaks out. Most actions are driven by fear. Let's start here because it's more universal than you think. 7. Most actions are driven by unconscious fear. Ask yourself this: why does someone over-explain? Why do they dominate a conversation or disappear completely? Why do they say yes when they clearly mean no? Fear of abandonment, rejection, humiliation, failure. Nietzsche knew that humans rarely act from pure desire. They act from a deep fear of loss of status, of love, of self-worth. So when you want to read someone, stop focusing on what they say they want. Instead, ask, what are they afraid of losing? That's where the truth lives. Criticism is a mirror. Next time someone constantly critiques others, listen closely. 8. When someone criticizes too much, it's projection. The man who mocks emotional people might be terrified of his own feelings. The woman who belittles others for their appearance might be locked in a secret war with her reflection. Nietzsche said that judgment is almost never about the other, matters about the self. So when you hear repeated criticisms, don't be distracted by the target. Instead, trace the line back to the speaker. What part of them are they trying to disown? Projection isn't just a defense mechanism, it's a confession. If you listen right, it tells you exactly where someone's pain lives. Confidence is often guilt in costume. There's a kind of person you've probably met, the one who seems overly sure of themselves, always in control, always composed. But watch long enough, and you'll see the tension in their jaw, the way they over-prepare, the defensiveness under pressure. 9. Guilt hides behind false confidence. Nietzsche observed this phenomenon in leaders, teachers, preachers, those who perform certainty because they're scared of being seen. When someone is chronically confident, look for the guilt they're trying to bury. Maybe it's something they regret. Maybe it's a version of themselves they're trying to prove wrong. Real peace doesn't perform. So when someone seems too confident, don't be intimidated. Be curious. Exaggeration reveals the hidden truth. This one is subtle but powerful, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. 10 people betray themselves through exaggeration. Someone who constantly says, "I don't care what anyone thinks," likely cares deeply. Someone who claims, "I'm always happy," likely isn't. Exaggeration is a tell. It's the ego trying to drown out doubt. Nietzsche believed that extremism in any direction is a form of imbalance, not strength. So when someone's statements sound too absolute, don't believe the content. Read the insecurity underneath. Exaggeration is volume. The question is, what are they trying to silence? The desire for control masks inner chaos. Control, we seek it everywhere, in our jobs, our relationships, our routines, but some people crave it to the point of obsession, and that's a sign. 11. Those who seek control often fear inner chaos. Nietzsche saw this clearly. When the inner world is disordered, the outer world must be managed obsessively. If someone micromanages every detail, if they can't handle change, if they dominate people to feel powerful, it's not because they're strong, it's because something inside them feels out of control. So instead of fearing the controlling person, see them for what they are. Someone terrified that the moment they let go, it will all fall apart. The stricter the outer shell, the more fragile the inner self. Performance of schools, emptiness in disguise. This is one of Nietzsche's most haunting insights, and it applies more today than ever. 12. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. Look at social media, the endless look at me energy, the perfect poses, the constant updates, the curated identity. Nietzsche didn't see this as strength, he saw it as desperation. When someone is constantly performing, it's because they don't believe they'll be seen or loved without it. So they create noise, color, drama, but the person who truly knows themselves doesn't need to be watched. They're already whole. So when someone's life looks like a performance, remember this: it's not a show of power. It's a whisper of need. Putting it together, you're probably starting to feel it now. The shift, you walk into a room and suddenly the patterns speak louder than the words. You see someone interrupting constantly and realize they're terrified of being forgotten. You see someone who boasts endlessly and sense their invisible wound. You're not reading minds, you're reading the mask, and Nietzsche gave you the flashlight. This isn't just a skill, it's a responsibility, because once you learn to see people clearly, you can't unsee it, and you'll begin to understand that most people are suffering quietly. Behind polished smiles, reading them is not about gaining leverage, it's about offering grace when you see the child. Behind the critic, the fear. Behind the bully, the guilt. Behind the arrogance, you don't become weaker, you become unshakable. Want more? If this part of the video opened your eyes, wait until the final part, because in part 3, we strip away the final layer. We'll explore how people's deepest childhood wounds show up in their adult personalities, how their envy, their silence, their need to be remembered, all reveal their soul. You'll learn the final 6 truths that make you see people with absolute clarity, but more importantly, you'll understand yourself by now. Something in you has shifted you. Don't just see people. You read them not as villains, not as victims, but as humans trying to survive with masks they Didn't even choose, but we're not done yet, because behind every behavior is a belief, and behind every belief is a wound. This final part is about learning to recognize the soul, the deep story that hides underneath the surface of everyone you meet. Nietzsche didn't just expose people's patterns, he illuminated where those patterns come from. Let's finish what we started. 13. No one speaks from logic, they speak from pain. You might think that people are rational, that they argue based on facts, make decisions based on reason, but Nietzsche believed otherwise. He believed that underneath every logical argument is an emotional wound. A person might say, I don't believe in love, it's just a fantasy. But listen closely. They're not stating a fact. They're protecting a pain. People form their views based on what hurt them, then justify those views with logic. So when you want to understand someone's worldview, don't just ask what they believe. Ask what broke them. Ask what scared them. Ask like what they never want to feel again. This changes everything. It shifts your focus from why are they saying this to what are they afraid of repeating, and suddenly their opinions aren't threats, they're defenses. Their arguments aren't attacks, they're shields. And when you see that, you stop reacting, you start understanding. 14. How someone reacts to weakness reveals their power. Want to truly see someone's character? Don't watch how they treat powerful people, watch how they treat someone who can't fight back. Nietzsche believed that real strength isn't proven through domination, it's revealed through restraint. If someone mocks vulnerability, they're afraid of their own. If someone punishes mistakes, they likely weren't allowed to make any. If someone always wins but leaves others bleeding, they're still at war with themselves. But the person who can witness weakness without judgment, who can sit with sadness without running away, who can forgive what they could have punished, that's someone who is no longer ruled by the past. They don't need to prove anything because they've already won the inner war. So if you want to read someone, give them a moment where compassion is an option. What they do in that moment will show you who they are, not just who they pretend to be. 15. When someone fears being forgotten, they chase attention. Ever met someone who always needs to be seen? Every room they enter, every story they tell, every outfit they wear screams, "Notice me." At first glance, it looks like confidence, but Nietzsche saw through it. He believed that the hunger for attention often comes from a deeper fear, the fear of being invisible, of being erased, of living and dying without leaving a mark. So people create noise, not because they love it, but because they can't bear the silence. The child who was ignored becomes the adult who overcompensates. And instead of asking for love directly, they demand it indirectly through performance, drama, or chaos. So when you see someone who's too much, don't be quick to judge. Ask what they're afraid will happen if they're not enough, because sometimes attention isn't vanity, it's a cry. 16. The person they attack is often the person they envy. One of Nietzsche's boldest truths, and one of the hardest to admit, is this: people don't always attack because they hate. They often attack because they admire, but feel they can never be. Criticism is easier than admiration. So the person who tears down someone successful, who mocks someone confident, who gossips about someone free, isn't just mean, they're in pain, because to see someone embody a part of you that you've abandoned is to be reminded of what you've lost. So instead of celebrating the other, we destroy them. But envy is just unspoken desire. It's the soul saying, I want that too, but I don't believe I'm allowed. If you can see this in others, you become immune to petty hate. If you can see this in yourself, you become free. 17. People act out their childhood not Their beliefs, you've heard it said, people don't change. But Nietzsche would say, people repeat, they repeat the roles. They were forced to play the fears they were taught to carry, the dynamics they never escaped. A person who was never heard becomes someone who never listens. A person who is punished for expressing emotions becomes cold, logical, detached. A person who had to earn love becomes someone who performs for affection even when it's toxic. They think they're acting from beliefs, but really they're just reenacting the past. So if you want to read someone, don't just look at who they are. Ask who they had to be, because behavior is just biography, and behind every adult is a child still waiting to feel safe. Their patterns are a confession if you know how to listen. This is the final truth, and it changes everything. People don't always know how to express what hurts, but they will show you again and again through patterns. A person who ghosts when things get close, a person who overworks to avoid stillness, a person who flirts with everyone but connects with no one. These aren't random behaviors, they're confessions. They're saying, this is how I protect myself. They're saying, this is where I was hurt. They're saying, this is what I fear repeating. Nietzsche believed that if you learn to listen deeply, not to words but to patterns, you can hear the truth before it's spoken. And when you do something amazing happens, you stop personalizing, you stop judging, you start understanding. You become a mirror, not a weapon. You become someone who sees and still chooses grace, and that more than any tactic or trick is what makes you powerful. You're not just reading people, you're remembering yourself now. Take a moment and reflect. Every truth we covered wasn't just about other people, it was about you, your own patterns, your own fears, your own childhood scripts. Because the more clearly you see others, the more clearly you see yourself. This isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning of a new way of seeing. Nietzsche didn't just want us to observe, he wanted us to awaken, to know that everything we judge in others is something we carry, that everything we admire is something we long to embody. Every mask you've seen in others is also a mirror of yourself. That's Nietzsche's challenge: to see, not to judge. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 18 truths opened your eyes the most, either about people you know or about yourself? Drop it in the comments. I'll be reading and replying. And if this video shifted how you see the world, subscribe, because we're only at the beginning. Until next time, keep looking beneath the surface.